10 Scariest Prophecies in the Book of Revelation. The Book of Revelation, written by the Apostle John, contains some of the most terrifying and symbolic visions in the Bible. Often called the Book of Apocalypse, it reveals powerful prophecies about the end of the world, divine judgment, and humanity's ultimate destiny. These 10 chilling prophecies describe events like cosmic battles, devastating plagues, and the final victory of good over evil. They are not just warnings, but also offer hope for those who remain faithful. One of the most haunting and vivid visions described in Revelation is that of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These 4 figures, each mounted on a horse of a different color, white, red, black, and pale, represent powerful forces that unleash divine judgment on earth. As described in Revelation 6:2-8, each horseman carries a specific symbolic meaning. The first horseman, mounted on a white horse, symbolizes conquest. His arrival brings violent and bloody conflicts that devastate entire nations and plunge humanity into despair. The sword he wields is a chilling representation of the destruction and violence that permeate the world during his reign. The second horseman, riding a fiery red horse, personifies war. As he advances, scarcity and the collapse of resources spread like wildfire. Famine grips the world, and millions are left to suffer hunger and desperation. The scales he carries in his hands are a somber symbol of the inequality and injustice that deepen humanity's suffering. The third horseman, riding a black horse, embodies pestilence and disease. His arrival brings deadly epidemics that sweep across populations, leaving devastation in their wake. The scales he carries emphasize the measured but relentless spread of death across the world. The fourth horseman, mounted on a pale green horse, represents death itself. This figure's chilling presence signals mass destruction as he collects countless souls and ushers in the collapse of life, as humanity knows it. These horsemen are not merely symbolic. They reflect the divine judgments that will fall upon earth. Could the trials humanity has faced in recent years, like the pandemic that swept the globe in 2020, be a harbinger of these apocalyptic riders? 2. The Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation is described as a period of unparalleled suffering that will sweep across humanity in the last days. It is a time of calamities, persecution, and unprecedented challenges, a period that will test the faith of all who endure it. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24, verses 21 and 22, Jesus himself warns of this time. For then there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. Despite the immense suffering that defines the Great Tribulation, there is a powerful message of hope for those who remain faithful to God. Revelation 7:14 highlights the redemption that awaits the faithful. These are they who have come out of the Great Tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. This verse reassures us that even amid trials, salvation and redemption are available for those who cling to their faith. The Great Tribulation is not merely an abstract concept. It can be seen reflected in the lives of persecuted Christians around the world today. Their endurance and faith mirror the elements of this foretold time of suffering. The 7 bowls of God's wrath. The 7 bowls of God's wrath represent a series of terrifying divine judgments that will be poured out upon humanity in the last days. These bowls, described in Revelation chapter 16, are carried by 7 angels, each tasked with unleashing catastrophic events on earth as part of God's final and ultimate judgment against sin and evil. The passage begins with a powerful declaration. Then I heard a loud voice from the temple saying to the 7 angels, "Go, pour out the 7 bowls of God's wrath on the earth." Revelation 16:1. Each bowl brings forth a specific plague or disaster, increasing in intensity and severity. The first bowl unleashes painful and malignant sores upon those who bear the mark of the beast and worship its image. These sores are a painful reminder of the consequences of choosing evil over God. The second and third bowls turn the seas and rivers into blood, killing marine life and contaminating all water sources. Without water, life becomes nearly impossible for humanity, leading to widespread death and despair. The fourth bowl intensifies the heat of the sun, scorching the earth and causing unimaginable suffering. People are unable to escape the searing heat, a powerful display of God's wrath. The fifth bowl plunges the beast's throne into utter darkness, symbolizing the complete moral and spiritual collapse of evil powers. This darkness brings chaos, confusion, and despair to those who follow the beast, dries up the Euphrates River, preparing the way for the kings of the east to gather for the final great battle at Armageddon. This prophecy reveals the deliberate preparation for the ultimate confrontation between good and evil. The seventh bowl unleashes thunder, lightning, earthquakes, and hailstones of unimaginable size and power. These events shake the very foundations of the earth, signaling the climax of God's judgment and the end of this age. These judgments are not just terrifying, they serve as a stark warning to humanity, urging repentance and a return to God before it is too late. Each bowl highlights the consequences of sin and rebellion, showing the depth of God's righteous anger. However, even amid these horrifying events, there is still hope. Revelation reminds us that those who turn to God and seek His mercy can escape the full measure of divine wrath. This prophecy challenges us to reflect on our choices and seek salvation while the opportunity remains. The Mark of the Beast. The Mark of the Beast is one of the most controversial and fearsome symbols in Revelation. It represents a sign of allegiance to the Antichrist and comes with eternal consequences for those who accept it. Revelation 13:16-17 describes this mark. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This mark is not just a physical symbol, it is a spiritual declaration of loyalty to the forces of evil. Revelation 14:9-10 warns of the fate of those who accept it. If anyone worships the beast and its image and receives its mark on their forehead or their hand, they too will drink the wine of God's fury. These verses highlight the gravity of the decision humanity will face in times of trial. Will we remain faithful to God, or will we succumb to the pressures of a world ruled by the Antichrist? Among the most sinister figures in the book of Revelation are the beast and the false prophet. These two powerful entities emerge as agents of evil during the end times, working together to deceive and lead humanity away from God. They symbolize the ultimate rebellion against divine authority and represent a terrifying spiritual danger to the world. The beast is described as a mighty and corrupt force, wielding immense power to subjugate humanity. Its infamous number, 666, is a chilling symbol of imperfection and rebellion against God's perfect order. Revelation 13:18 calls for wisdom in understanding its meaning. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. This number not only identifies the beast, but also symbolizes humanity's flawed attempts to rule without God. The beast uses its power to control nations, spread corruption, and enforce the worship of its image. The false prophet, on the other hand, is portrayed as a deceitful religious leader who supports the beast's mission through false miracles and deceptive signs. The false prophet manipulates people into worshipping the beast and accepting its mark. He appears convincing and even holy, but his ultimate goal is to steer humanity further into spiritual destruction. Revelation 19:20 reveals their final defeat. But the beast was captured, and with it, the false prophet who had performed the signs on its behalf. With these signs, he had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. The two of them were thrown alive into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. These figures represent the forces of spiritual deception and evil that will rise during the last days. They remind us of the dangers of being misled by false leaders who appear righteous but work against God's truth. Despite the immense power of the beast and the false prophet, their ultimate defeat at the hands of God's judgment is a powerful reminder of the triumph of good over evil. This prophecy assures believers that no matter how strong evil may seem, it will not prevail. The victory belongs to God and to those who remain faithful to Him. Will humanity see through their lies, or will many fall victim to their deceit? This question challenges us to stay vigilant, rooted in truth, and aware of the dangers of spiritual compromise in a world filled with false promises. The Battle of Armageddon. The Battle of Armageddon is one of the most dramatic and climactic events described in the book of Revelation. This confrontation presents the ultimate clash between the forces of good, led by Jesus Christ, and the forces of evil, led by the beast. It is the final and decisive battle that determines the fate of the earth and ushers in God's eternal kingdom. Revelation 16:16 introduces the name Armageddon, which comes from the Hebrew Har Megiddo, meaning the mountain of Megiddo. This ancient location in Palestine was historically a site of numerous battles, making it a powerful and fitting symbol for the final showdown between good and evil. The Apostle John describes this epic battle in vivid detail in Revelation 19:11-21. He writes of the heavens opening to reveal Jesus Christ riding on a white horse. Christ is called faithful and true, and he judges and makes war with perfect righteousness. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. He has a name written on him that no one knows but he himself. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. Christ is not alone. He is followed by the armies of heaven, clothed in fine white linen and riding white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword, symbolizing the power of his word, with which he will strike the nations. On his robe and thigh are written the titles King of Kings and Lord of Lords. The beast, the kings of the earth, and their armies gather to wage war against Christ and his heavenly host. They are united in their rebellion, but their efforts are futile. The outcome of this battle is clear and decisive. The beast and the false prophet are captured and thrown alive into the lake of fire, a place of eternal torment and separation from God. The rest of the enemies are slain by the sharp sword that comes from Christ's mouth. His word alone is powerful enough to destroy the forces of evil. The birds of the air feast on the fallen, fulfilling the angel's prophecy of the great supper of God, where the enemies of righteousness are utterly defeated. The Battle of Armageddon is not just a story of destruction. It is a powerful symbol of Christ's ultimate victory over the forces of evil. It marks the end of humanity's rebellion against God and the beginning of a new era of divine justice and peace. This terrifying and awe-inspiring prophecy reminds us of the power and authority of Jesus Christ. It also challenges us to consider which side we will stand on when the final battle begins. Will we align ourselves with the forces of good, or will we follow the paths of rebellion that lead to destruction? The destruction of Babylon. Babylon is depicted in the book of Revelation as a city overflowing with corruption, greed, and spiritual rebellion. It is described as the ultimate symbol of humanity's defiance against God, representing a society consumed by materialism and idolatry. Babylon stands as a warning of what happens when human pride and sin reach their peak. Revelation 17:5 paints a vivid picture of Babylon as a harlot, adorned with riches and power, yet destined for destruction. The name written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. This description emphasizes Babylon's role as the center of spiritual immorality and false worship. While she appears powerful and alluring, her fate is sealed. Revelation 18 portrays her fall in dramatic detail. An angel proclaims with a loud voice, "Fallen! Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable animal." Babylon's wealth, influence, and false sense of security vanish in an instant. The kings, merchants, and seafarers of the earth mourn her destruction, not because of her righteousness, but because they can no longer profit from her riches. Their grief is selfish, revealing the emptiness and greed that Babylon represents. The destruction of Babylon is swift and total, symbolizing the end of human systems that oppose God's righteousness. Her fall is not just a physical event, it is a spiritual cleansing, marking the downfall of everything that stands against God's holy plan. This prophecy reminds us that no matter how powerful or untouchable something may seem, nothing can stand against God's judgment. Babylon's destruction serves as a powerful warning to reject greed, idolatry, and rebellion, and to live according to God's truth. The story of Babylon is not just about a city, it's about humanity's tendency to place trust in wealth, power, and worldly systems instead of God. It challenges us to reflect on our own lives. Are we building our foundations on temporary things or on the eternal promises of God? Ultimately, the fall of Babylon reveals the triumph of divine justice. It is a reminder that God's judgment is not only terrifying, but also fair and complete. The final judgment.